Are you still making tacos with hard shell corn tortillas? Not anymore. Birria tacos. Birria tacos are street food that are going to be your new favorite. Shredded tender beef, gooey melty cheese, and a spicy broth for dipping.
We'll start with the guajillo chilies. You want them to be fairly fresh and not overly dry. Start by pulling off the stem and dumping out the seeds. You can see they're still slightly pliable and not overly brittle. Just rough tear them by hand. We'll bring some beef broth to a boil and add the chilies, turn off the heat, and allow them to steep while we prep the rest of the ingredients. Dice a white onion and separate it into 2 bowls. We'll use half to garnish the tacos at the end and half to cook with. Next, mince some fresh garlic and add it to the half that you're gonna cook with. Now we'll make the seasoning blend by mixing some kosher salt, black pepper, and cumin. Adding cumin to the seasoning helps to build a layer of flavor when searing the beef. We're using a chuck roast for this recipe, and we really want all that nice marbling to render into the broth for use later. Start by cutting it into approximately 3-inch cubes, then generously season it with the seasoning blend. Make sure to coat all sides of the meat with the seasoning. You don't want to waste any and miss out on more flavor. Set the Instant Pot to the sauté setting on more and add some canola oil once it's hot. Now we will sear the pieces in the Instant Pot. Make sure to get a good sear on at least 2 sides of those chuck roast cubes. That sear develops so much flavor. Reserve the seared pieces to a clean sheet pan or plate. Reduce the heat of the Instant Pot to the less setting and add the onion and garlic. We're just trying to coax out the flavor of these aromatics. Season with salt and allow to cook for a few minutes in order to soften the onion and pull up some of the brown bits from the bottom of the pan. Add tomato paste and stir to incorporate with the onions and lightly caramelize the tomato paste. Next, we will add some oregano, a cinnamon stick, and some cumin to the Instant Pot. You may think of cinnamon stick as something sweet, but it really goes well in this traditional birria style. Return the beef to the Instant Pot, along with any of the juices that may have collected in the pan. Then we'll go and finish the broth that the beef will be cooking in. The chilies have been steeping for about 10 minutes and begun to soften. Pour all of the broth and the chilies into a blender, along with a can of roasted diced tomatoes and green chilies, some canned chipotle peppers, and some fresh lime juice. The roasted tomatoes and chilies along with the chipotles will add a nice smoky element to this broth. When blending a hot liquid like this, make sure to remove the plug from the lid of the blender and place a towel over that hole. This will prevent the pressure from building up from the heat and blowing the lid off the blender. Puree until a completely smooth broth has formed with no lumps. We'll pour this really flavorful broth into the Instant Pot, and you can just smell the rich flavor coming from those chilies.
With all those flavors being built, we're gonna get the pressure cooking going. So I'll get the lid on and then go to pressure cook, high pressure. We're gonna let this cook on high for 1 hour and then naturally depressurize for 20 minutes because that's what's really gonna allow it to get as tender as possible.
While it depressurizes, I'll prep the garnishes. Cut 1 lime into slices. This will be for people to squeeze over their taco at the end. Now rough chop some cilantro. It doesn't have to be finely minced. We'll mix this with some of the raw white onion from earlier to give it a little extra flavor. Vent any remaining steam before opening the lid. Now that the beef is nice and tender, we'll transfer it into a bowl and begin to shred it using 2 forks. At this point, the beef is super tender and should be falling apart practically on its own. You want it fairly well shredded in order to evenly fill the tacos. To complete the tacos, we'll dip the tortillas right in the rendered fat and juices from the beef. That fat has so much flavor from all the spices and will help to crisp the tortillas in the pan. We'll top the tortillas with some of the shredded cheese. I'm using Chihuahua cheese, but you could use any cheese that you like that's also good for melting. Finally, we'll add that layer of tender shredded beef right on top of that cheese. While the tortillas are still pliable, fold them in half. Allow them to get toasty on the cheese side before flipping to ensure a crisp tortilla all over. Now we'll get these out of the pan and repeat with all the remaining tortillas and beef. You're gonna wanna crush all these tacos by yourself, but they're so good you gotta share them with some friends. Make sure to garnish with that raw white onion and cilantro, and maybe don't forget to squeeze that lime over there like I did.
Now I gotta dig in. Give it a dunk. After trying these birria tacos, your taco night will never be the same. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time here in the test kitchen.